Welcome to the Gutenberg Research Financial Modeling Co-op program. My name is John Moschella. I'm the instructor of the program, and I'm also the founder of GutenbergResearch.com. And I'm very much looking forward to rolling this out to the Gutenberg community. I've tried a couple of different iterations and run a pilot program with a group of MSF students, and I think at this point we really have a great format for you. So I'm really looking forward to this semester. Now, before we get started, I just want to answer the question that's probably at the top of your mind as you research different financial modeling classes, and that probably is, what's different about this class compared to the others? And there are really two distinguishing points. The first is that I teach my course in real time. So what that means is we're going to build a model for a company before they actually report their quarterly results. Then on the night of the press release, we're going to go through, check how close your forecast was, and I'll show you how to update your model. So the real-time nature is key. And the other point is this is a small business. I developed the course myself. I developed all the curriculum and the textbook. And a lot of my students have found it beneficial to actually have direct access to me. So, if you like this idea of working with a small company and having this real-time nature, I think this is going to be the program for you. So having said that, let's get into the details here. These are the points that I want to hit on as we go through the information session. So I'll start by giving you some background information and details about the program. We'll go over the timeline, and you'll be able to really see how we get through this real-time format. Then there are two formats of the program, a standard delivery where you'll have access to live meetings, and then there's a self-paced e-learning format. So I'll go through those 2 points. I'll take you through the curriculum, and you can see some excerpts from the text and the course material, and then hopefully all this information will help you decide if this is the right program for you. And this last point here is really the key. I'm not trying to sell you the program during this information session. I just want to give you all of the background information that you need so that you can make an informed decision about whether or not this is the right course for you. So let's jump right into it. What are we talking about here? It is a financial modeling course, but I like to describe it as a real-world, real-time, cooperative education experience. So what does that actually mean? And we touched on this a little bit in that first point, but really what we're talking about here is, when I say real world, we're talking about a real company. So we're going to actually be modeling results for Starbucks Corp. And some classes will actually use textbook examples that are very clean, but in reality, you're not going to have that kind of luxury of where everything ties out perfectly in the real world when you start your career. So I think you really need to be using a real world example. And some other companies are actually using real world examples too for their financial modeling classes. But like as I said at the opening of the information session, the real time, the second part of that description, is really the key. So we're going to model Starbucks results before they actually report results, and then we're going to do the full valuation, and you'll see I'll actually incorporate interest rate forecasts, so we'll be doing that in real time as well. So as we go through the course, you'll have access to different pieces at different times, and at the very start of the program, some of the information that we have won't have been released yet. So it's actually, you'll see how I structure the availability of the curriculum works perfectly so that when the Federal Reserve is meeting and giving their next policy statement, I'm actually incorporating that into the back part of the curriculum. And so as we work through, new information is being released right through the entire course, and you're going to get that exposure as it actually comes to you. And that's how your career is going to work too. So I think this is a really important format for you to have access to, because this is how it is when you actually go into the sell side or whatever type of financial modeling you're going to be doing. Information will be coming at you as you're building your models. So, so real world, real time, and cooperative education. Now, the cooperative education part is really about working with your professors. So in some cases, some of your professors have actually adopted this course as part of their investing or equity classes. And in that case, I've actually worked with your professors to tailor the curriculum, and that makes it the true cooperative education experience. You also have the opportunity to take this class on your own, and I'll form a group of students that we'll have our own class separate from the other individual cooperative classes that are taking it. So that is the experience. And when I say experience at the end, that's really talking about the fact that this, just because of the nature of the program, it's going to feel more like on-the-job training you'll probably feel more like you're an intern at a sell-side research firm than actually sitting in a classroom working on this. And that's just the nature of, having to update your model as the company reports results. So it's an experience. It's a little bit different than what you would get just sitting in a classroom with a textbook. So how do we actually achieve this experience part of it? Now, this one slide gives you a brief overview of all the different steps that we're going to go through. It's hard to consolidate it all into one slide, but this gets as close as possible. And you can see I've divided it out into 4 different modules. So the first module has 3 individual classes. We'll start with class 1, which just gives you some background information about financial modeling in general. And this is really for students who have no exposure to financial modeling prior to this class. Then in class 2, we're going to start by going through the income statement. We're going to start with a blank spreadsheet, and I'll give you the format of the spreadsheet just so that the entire class can have the same flow. But I'll show you how to build the equations to make it a dynamic model so that when you go through and you actually change individual inputs, it's going to filter through the income statement and the other financial statements as well. Then from class 2, we'll move into class 3, and you'll add a balance sheet and a cash flow statement to your financial model. And all of those are going to be interrelated with working equations so that when you do change those primary inputs, it's going to filter through all 3 financial statements. So at that point, you'll have completed the first 3 chapters in the textbook on your own, and you'll have a basic first attempt at the model. And then we're going to have our first meeting, and then I'll go through, answer any questions that you have, and I'll take some examples from the class of some of the difficult areas that you're having, and I'll walk through those details with you in our meeting. And then after that meeting, you'll have a bit of time to finish your first draft of the model, and then you'll submit your model to me for review. Then while I'm reviewing your models, we'll move from Module 1 into Module 2, which is all about entering your forecast. So Module 2 is a one-class forecast module. And what you're going to do is you're going to put the primary inputs into your model. So for Starbucks, if you think about it, you'll have like same-store sales will be one of the key factors that you'll use, and I'll show you exactly how that particular metric works. But you're going to actually be entering your forecast in at this point. So when you submitted your first model, it was just a draft. I would not be checking your forecast at that point. I just want to check to make sure that all of your equations and the structure of the model are sound before you move on. So after you enter your forecast, we're going to have our second meeting, and I'm going to go through again a couple of examples from your class. For, if anyone's willing to volunteer their examples, and usually they do, and it actually works out pretty well to have some examples from your class. If not, I'll do a bull case and a bear case scenario in my version of the model, and I'll walk you through those details. Then after the meeting number 2, we're going to move into Module 3. Module 3 is all about setting a target valuation for Starbucks. So the first part of that is to go through the discounted cash flow valuation inputs. So what we'll do at this point is I'll show you how to use the equity risk premium model to come up with a required return on equity. And so within that equity risk premium model, we're going to use estimates of volatility and interest rates, and I'll go through and show you how to read and interpret the Federal Reserve's FOMC committee, Federal Reserve's Open Market Committee policy statement on interest rates, and how to forecast interest rates for yourself based on macroeconomic factors and a number of things we'll go through. We'll also use estimates of volatility, and I'll give you some things to think about there. And you can actually take my equity risk premium model and enter your own forecast in by changing some of those key inputs, and then we'll derive the required rate of return from that. And we'll use those DCF inputs in class 6 when you actually go through and take the cash flow estimates that come out of your model from class 4 and discount them to come up with a target valuation. Then the other piece of the valuation is a market multiple valuation. So we're going to apply a multiple to Starbucks, and then we'll use a 50-50 weighting of those DCF and market multiples for your overall target valuation. Then after you complete that class, we're going to meet again. This will be our third meeting, and we'll go through your last questions about valuation and any other follow-up questions that you might have about your forecast. And after you finish that, you'll have a couple of days to finish up your model, and then we'll move into Module 4, where you'll actually submit your model to review for me. Then while I'm reviewing your models and getting you feedback, we're going to work on getting prepared for the Starbucks earnings release. So you can see I have the dates in here. The entire program goes around this meeting date for Starbucks. So we kind of like work backwards in time from that date. And that's how this whole real-time experience works. So you'll be going through how to prepare for the earnings release, and I give you some tips that I used when I was in sell-side research about getting ready so that it could flow really quickly as soon as the press release comes out, and you can update your model very fast. And then on that night of the actual earnings release, we'll have our fourth meeting, and we'll go through the results together. And I will take you through how to update your model. You can see how close your forecast was. And for some of the larger classes, we'll actually run a little game to see whose forecast came closest, which has been fun in the past to have this little contest. Then after the Starbucks earnings release, we'll have one more meeting, and this one is to go through a live review of the FOMC policy statement as it's actually released. Now, the reason I do this at this point in the program is if we try to do it before the Starbucks release, it's a little too close to actually put the focus in when you're trying to finalize your forecast model. So it's just better to have it as a review item at the end. And it just kind of reiterates the point about how important interest rates are on overall equity valuations. So this is a more relaxed meeting. This is the final one. And in this meeting, I'll also go through some details about the final exam to help you prepare. And that's the last step, is to take the final exam. So a lot of activities there you can see, and it takes a lot of work to go through to actually have this real-time experience, but it's all part of a bigger plan. So it's all based on this theory of experiential learning, and it's actually from the 80s, but it seems to make sense, and it works with different learning styles. So you can see we basically take 3 laps around this cycle. So the cycle starts with the concrete experience. So some new information is introduced. So I'm introducing the concept of building a dynamic model to you. You can then reflect on what you see. So you'll see pre-recorded videos as part of my curriculum. You'll read it in my textbook, how to create the model. And then your reflection and your observation will then give rise to new ideas that you'll have about financial modeling from watching the videos and creating your own model. And then that's the actual active experimentation. So the end of the first cycle is going through and creating your first model. So the first loop around it is when you're doing the first draft, before you do the forecast, just setting up all the equations. The second lap starts in Module 2. And this is where you're actually going through and getting introduction to the concept of forecasting, watching the demonstration videos, and I'll give you some details of how I actually approach forecasting in my professional career. And then that'll give you ideas about how you would want to do it. And then you would, of course, actively experiment and submit your own forecast within your model, and then I'll give you feedback. Then the third lap around the cycle is reading the textbook, thinking about the material, and then taking the exam. So you can see, depending on your learning style, you might favor one particular point on this cycle, but because it's all-encompassing, you can focus one area. One of your fellow students may focus somewhere else, but you'll all get the experience that you actually need, and you'll get the feedback that you need, more importantly, from me directly on your model, but also from the company. You can see, the market will give you feedback if you're actually correct in your forecast or not. And 1 quarter is really not enough to drive whether or not your forecast for a longer term, earnings and cash flow forecast is accurate or not. But it will give you some experience doing this, and that's how it's going to actually be in reality when you start your careers. You'll get 1 quarter at a time. So there's a method to this madness behind, going through this entire approach and the way that we've built in the different feedback points in the loop. So really what I described there was the standard approach. So if you're taking the full version of the program, that's where you're going to get. But I've also introduced a less expensive and kind of more adapted to your schedule version of the program, and that would be the self-paced e-learning. And you can see here on this slide, these are the 2 programs side by side, and you can see what comes with each of these. So you have the printed version of the textbook comes with the standard version, not the self-paced. Same thing with the supplemental modeling guide and the program course book. You'll get printed versions if you take the standard. You'll get e-versions only if you're taking the self-paced e-learning version of the program. Access to the online training hub and pre-recorded videos, that will come with both versions of the program. And then the 3 private group class video meetings. So this is really geared to full classes who want to take this. So if you're signing up with a full class, your class will have a private class without other members of the Gutenberg community. If you take it individually, then obviously I'm going to lump you guys all in with one class that I'll be teaching. And then the 2 group meetings, obviously for the nature of the program, we do the live session of the FOMC meeting and the live session of the Starbucks earnings release. Those 2 will have to include everybody that's taking the program at one time, obviously, just because it's going to be at the exact same time that information gets released. You'll have live question support in class if you're taking the standard version of the program, and then everybody will have access to email support. So you can obviously text me questions that you have, and I'll give priority response to the standard course members, and then self-paced will also still have access to questions. Then the model feedback is only part of the standard program. So when you're doing the self-paced e-learning version, you're not going to actually be submitting your model for review. You'll be doing this on your own. And then I will also give you the opportunity to publish your model on gutenbergresearch.com if you're taking the standard version of the program. And that's a good way for you to showcase your skills to potential employers. So next, I want to just go through the different parts of the curriculum. So you can see, as part of that whole concept of, people have different learning styles and trying to make sure that you get whatever it is that you need for your specific learning style, we actually have a bunch of different pieces of the curriculum. So first, it starts with the program course pack. The course pack is really the details about what you need to complete the program. So it has the syllabus, it has the forms that I'll be using to give you feedback on your model. It has the printed versions of the slides, which will, of course, change as we go through and more information is updated, and I'm tailoring the curriculum as we go, just due to that real-time nature. But still, it'll give you, most of the slides will be pretty much the same, so you'll have a printed version in there. Then after the course pack, you see I've got the textbook. So the textbook is a little bit different than the course material because it is static in nature. So that piece of the curriculum is actually looking back in time. And the example for that is FedEx. So FedEx Corp is not the model that we're going to be building, but it might give you some ideas about things that you want to incorporate into your Starbucks model. And the textbook also has questions at the end of each chapter, which will give you some good practice for the final exam. The exam is actually based on the textbook questions, so you definitely want to spend some time on that. And we'll go through the exam in greater detail during the orientation process. Then the supplemental modeling guide. Now, this is really goes back to the textbook, and I've essentially rewritten the textbook for the first 3 chapters for the part where you're actually building your model. So I've rewritten it to just look at Starbucks. So I'm going through each individual financial account from Starbucks and showing you exactly how to build your model. So you can actually see it in text. And then in the pre-recorded class videos, I'm doing the exact same thing. So I'm showing you for each financial statement line item of Starbucks, I'm showing you exactly how to build the equations into your version of the model. So it's really those last 2 points on the left-hand side of this slide show you that you'll have different types of curriculum to suit your needs. So if you're the type of person that wants to watch the video and see exactly how it works in demonstration format, you can do that. If you like to just sort of breeze through the text and see how to do it and then try it for yourself, you can do that as well. And that's the Supplemental Modeling Guide. Then we get into the live class meetings. So of course, this is the standard version of the program only, not the self-paced e-version. Those class meetings are really meant to not necessarily add additional information. So when you're doing this as a e-learning self-paced, you're not going to be missing out on anything necessarily. The class meetings are really about just kind of reinforcing the information that's in the textbook and the pre-recorded classes. So I'm not going to regurgitate everything from the pre-recorded classes again in those class meetings. I'm just going to try to take any questions that you have. Maybe I'll show you some examples from professional equity research analysts, or I'll take examples from your classmates and go through them. But it's not going to be anything that's necessarily different than what's in the pre-recorded classes or the Supplemental Modeling Guide. Then a big part of the curriculum is my spreadsheet templates. So I have the entire model built out. Now, I'm not going to give you the full build out on day one, obviously, because you need to build the model yourself. So you'll see that some of the classes actually stay locked until you finish the first module and you get into, you submit your model to me, and then I'll unlock the classes so you have access to my version of the model, which I'll be calling the solution version of the model. And I have a number of other different spreadsheets. So I talked a little bit about the equity risk premium model. You'll have access to that and some other things to help you out too. Then my email updates are really part of the curriculum because, as I was saying in the introduction, information is really released as we're going through this program. So as some new development comes out in the market, maybe there's something about the market in general or volatility or some macroeconomic factor. And of course, interest rates are going to be a hot topic throughout the curriculum. So whenever information comes out that's relevant for the class, I'm going to be sending an email as a way of helping you sort of link the headlines of the day to what you're doing in your work here. And it should also help you stay focused and engaged as we work through the full curriculum. And then the exam is the last part of the curriculum. Now, the exam is delivered through a third party, but it's actually it's incorporated into the Gutenberg Research website directly, so you won't have to go anywhere else separate to actually take the exam. So I touched on this briefly. I just want to make sure you hear this up front. So the availability of the curriculum, just because of the real-time nature of the program, I'll actually be updating the curriculum as you're working on the first 3 chapters. Some new data is going to be released in the 4th, 5th, and 6th chapters of the program. So, it's really difficult from the instructor's standpoint to deliver this real-time experience because of all of the updates that have to constantly be going on. But now that we have the program pretty well developed, it runs relatively smoothly, and you'll see that there's a very logical flow of when the curriculum is available for you. So this is actually included in detail within the syllabus of the program, and I've made the syllabus available here in this information session. So go through and read the full details of when each of those curriculum points will be available to you, just to have a clear view before you sign up and try to get started. Now, this is particularly important for the self-paced students. So if you think that self-paced means that you can just go in from day one, cram through the entire thing in one weekend, that's not actually going to be the case, because some of those programs or some of the later classes will still be locked locked to you before you get started. And the reason is, one, I don't want to, mess up the integrity of the standard version of the program, because I wouldn't want anybody from the self-paced version to leak any information to their friends in other classes that are taking the standard. So that's an important factor. But also, if I release that to you too soon, I'm not going to actually have the full data in those later classes available to me. So you're going to get very confused about, what information should be in your model. So we still have to stick to the regular availability schedule just to make sure that it all flows well for everyone. All right. So now, is this the right program for you? So this, we have to revisit these points that I was saying at the start of the program. So one, this is a small company. I'm the founder. I'm going to be working with you directly, which means that there's, pros about this. So that's good that you get the experience of, dealing with me. But there are cons about it too. So my program is probably a little bit less refined than what you would find with some of those other well-developed, well-established financial modeling classes. So you really have to think about, go through the website and see how this is delivered. And you can take a look at some of these resources that I made available to you on the information page, and just think about the type of person that you are. Are you excited about the aspect of working with me directly? And this whole concept of doing this in a real-time manner, or do you prefer the more refined, rigid kind of approach of the other financial modeling courses? And that's fine if you do. The goal here is to find out if we have a good match here, and you'll just have to decide that for your own. Now, the other main thing here is this is based on my personal experience, which is in sell-side research at an investment bank. So I know some of you want to learn financial modeling, but you're not planning on going into sell-side research, and that's fine too. But really, sell-side research is just the vessel that I'm using to deliver the financial modeling knowledge. And I think it works really well just because, for one, public companies have a lot of information that's readily available to us. But also, it's just the nature of it is it's good for training. And you'll see actually in practice that a lot of sell-side research analysts go on to do a number of different careers after they've kind of gotten their feet wet in the industry. So it's just inherently good for training. That doesn't mean that you can't use the financial modeling skill set that you get here for other things. Of course, you could go into the buy side or portfolio management, or some kind of underwriting role, and even for some FP&A roles that are kind of heavy on the forecasting side, you might have a couple of things that are really important that you learn. Or if nothing else, it's just a good experience for problem solving. But if you want to learn financial modeling, I think sell-side research is a good place to get started. All right, so the last thing we have to do is really decide if you want to enroll. And if you do, it's actually very simple to sign up. So you just click on, you can use the drop downs here on gutenbergresearch.com and select which version of the program you want, and then you just sign up. Once you sign up, you'll get access to the orientation page, and you'll get a email update from me, and then I'll give you the full details of what you need to get started at that point. If you have any questions before you decide, feel free to reach out to me directly, or if you're part of a group, if you're a professor or part of a investment club that want to take the program as a full class, you can reach out to me and I will go through the details of how to get you guys enrolled. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to working with you this semester.